Robert Plank Show episode 15, how to run a webinar class to create instant information products and make recurring money online using GoToWebinar, Camtasia, and PowerPoint. Welcome back to the Robert Plank Show. Whether you're a first-time listener or a long-time listener, I'm really excited to be back on the 20-minute format. You might have noticed our last couple of episodes have been the hour-long supersized format, but today we're going to cover how you can use this thing called a live webinar to create information products that make you money before you create them, as you create them, after you create them, and over again. And as someone who wants to make money from the information you have, this is the best, the fastest, and the most profit-producing way to make money from your knowledge, to create these things called information products. Because if you think about it, you have a skill, right? And let's say that your skill is street fighting, and you want to teach others how to fight in a certain way where they can defend themselves or things like that. And you can only teach so many people one at a time. So what do? Well, you might have heard that you create a book, create a product, which is fine, but it takes a while. You might have heard things like, well, maybe you can record a video of some kind, and that takes a while, and maybe you're not sure, how long it'll take, or maybe you'll do it over, or, you might create 30 or 40 videos, which takes a while. But what we're going to talk about today is this better solution called a 4-week webinar class. Sometimes it goes to 8 weeks, but most of the time 4 weeks will do it. And so any kind of skill that you have to impart on someone, well, if you can split that up into 4 distinct pieces and modules, then it becomes a lot easier to cover. And so you might have heard, things like where I talk about this rule of 3, where any problem you have can be easily broken up into 3 parts. Well, this kind of applies here, except for in a webinar class, then you're going to have your first 3 modules, and then at some point you're going to need some kind of a wrap-up module, or just to fill in all the things that you forgot about and have what's called this 4-week module. So just kind of going off the top of my head, a couple of classes that we've recently run using these things called live webinars were called Set Up a Fan Page, which taught Facebook marketing, which taught how to create a fan page on Facebook and advertise and get 1-cent clicks from Facebook. Another one was called Podcast Crusher, which teaches everyone how to create an internet radio show, just like the one you're listening to here, where it's on iTunes, it's on Stitcher, it's on the different podcast directories, it gets syndicated, it gets subscribers. So it's this technical process, and so I could have written a book about it, and it would have taken a long time, I would have had to write a lot, add screenshots. I could have made some free videos about it, but who wants to sit through a lot of videos? I'd rather make money from it and get people in this class where I can say, well, there's this thing that you need to do called making a podcast, and you might have heard about it, but here's how to do it. And so on this exact day, we're going to meet, and we're going to actually create a podcast right in front of you, and you can follow along, and you can do it. So there's been a previous episode of the Robert Plank Show talking about this thing called a pitch webinar. So just to get you completely caught up, a live webinar is this thing where you can share your screen and speak out your voice live in front of an audience. So right then and there, just as you're speaking it out, hundreds of people are on this show of yours, and they can't talk to each other. They can talk to you, but you can choose to ignore it, or answer it. But this is a live broadcast you're doing, where you're sharing not your face. It's not like a webcam streaming, but you're sharing the screen in front of you. So you're sharing your desktop, web browser, PowerPoint, piece of software, whatever it is that you want to show on your screen. And this is also great because, well, for a lot of reasons, but the biggest one for me is that I'm more energized and excited, even more than I am right now in front of you, because I'm talking to people live. I do it right then and there live. There's no pauses. There's no do-overs. I just have to do it right there live. I record it, and then it can become an information product. So in the past, I want to say it's maybe episode 7 of the Robert Plank Show, but definitely don't listen to that until we're done here. But that is an episode that talks to you about how to create a pitch webinar. How do you create a 1-hour webinar session where anyone can attend? It's free. You teach a little bit, but then at the end you have this pitch where you say, now that we've gone through all this, here is the thing that I want you to buy. And there's a whole formula for that. But That's just a one-off event. And what we're doing here is actually using webinars to deliver a product that people have paid for. And so when we launched Set Up a Fan Page, when we launched Podcast Crusher, we said this class is going to do this, this, and this. It's going to be these 4 modules. We're going to meet at this date and time, and it's going to be this price. And so we actually create our pitch, we create our sales letter, our outline, our curriculum, and that's it, and have a price. So we sell this class that's coming up soon, but we haven't actually created it yet, which is kind of cool to get paid up front, to get paid hundreds or probably thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, before you even do one little thing with it. And so it's a really cool thing to do, and I mean, most people have no problem with paying you money up front for a course because there's this thing called a refund policy. And you're pitching them a course that's probably going to be delivered, that you're going to create in a few days from now, and we're not saying 6 months away, we're saying maybe like next week or so. And hopefully you've given them some kind of a bonus up front. So if you have any kind of materials, any kind of quick tools or getting started videos or articles, that's always great to give them up front. But you figure out, okay, what are the 4 pieces that I need to give people to get them from, what Lance and I always say, point A to point B. So in Podcast Crusher, the first module is to set up your own podcast. And we tell people how to, get it recorded, how to get these things called tags working properly, how to just record a simple 5-minute podcast episode. Not an hour, not 20 minutes, but just 5 minutes with no music, no fanciness. Just sit down, record 5 minutes, and put it on your blog, and then get it submitted to iTunes, because that takes between 3 hours and 3 days. And it's important to have that one little milestone accomplished, right? Then the next module is to create a 20-minute podcasting episode, and we have a formula for that. How to add music, how to add artwork. The third module is in how to add the social presence, add the Facebook fan page for the podcast, engage listeners, submit to directories. And then the final module, the fourth module, is monetizing that podcast. Sponsors, affiliate promotions, guest shows, pre-selling, credibility, all that good stuff. So by the time someone is done with Podcast Crusher, and by the way, you can join at podcastcrusher.com, shameless plug, then you can have a podcast in your name that you can add to whenever you want, that you can set up over and over again, that you can set up even for other people. But we didn't just try to teach it in one 6-hour session, or we didn't just give the overview. We didn't have the introductory module, nothing like that. We just figured out, well, let me split this up into 4 modules, and then I can, based on that, take all the pieces and put a few things here, a few things here, a few things here, so that it all makes sense. But because we've also separated this into modules, a few things happen. First of all, when we run these modules, we do what I've referred to before as the WWHW format, right? So we talk about why and what in the first few minutes. Most of it's how to, and the last part is what if. And so in a pitch webinar, this would be called a pitch, a call to action, but in a webinar class, in one particular module of webinar class, the last part, the last 10 minutes or so, is what's called a challenge. And so what we're doing is, say for module, let's just say Podcast Crusher Module 1, we get people to record a 5-minute podcast and put it online, and we show all that live in front of you. So we're not just talking about it, we talk about it a little bit, but then we go through the steps. That way, all you have to do is follow along exactly, and there's no guessing, there's none of this. You just follow along with exactly what you see. But then at the end, we say, well, we don't just want to show you, we want you to do it. So we have these things called challenges, where basically we have, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but we have a members area where we create a new blog post that only the members, only the paying members of our webinar class can access. And then we ask them 4 simple questions. So let me just find the challenge post for that first module. We have a post that says nothing else but answer the following questions below. Question 1, what will be the name of your show? Question 2, what will be the title of your first episode? Question 3, what will be the 3 talking points of your podcast episode? And number 4, what time and date will your podcast be submitted to iTunes? When you're finished, come back and post "I am done" so we can all hear your first show. So I've thrown out a lot of things for you so far, and we're at the halfway point of this episode. So let me back up, and let me just, after I've given you all these kind of cool ideas, let me explain to you what it is exactly that you have to do to run a 4-week webinar class. So what you do is, first we've explained that you have a sales letter, right? You have one web page where you just list each of the modules you're going to be offering. You have a payment button where someone can click and pay you money and pay you, for example, $500 to discover how to street fight properly. You know, someone who can to pay you $300 to discover how to set up WordPress and how to have a blog that runs on its own, and lots of cool things like that. So before doing anything else, you have to give people the ability to pay you money to join this course. And in pretty much every podcast episode, I mentioned my very good friend and business partner, Lance Tamashiro. And when he started off with this model, he didn't even have a sales letter. He just had a web page with a buy button on it, and then ran a free webinar to his subscribers, and then taught them a few things, and then said at the end, go here to this web page, and then click the button. And there was literally nothing else to do on that web page, nothing else to read other than to click the button and buy. So that's what people need to see up front. Is first they need a way to pay you money, because yeah, you might give away some things for free. You might have your 1-hour pitch webinar, but don't teach them your whole modular course for free. That's worth something. You should get paid money for that. So that's the first thing, is you have a sales letter and a payment button. For the sales letter, what you can do is get a WordPress plugin called papertemplates.com, and then you can easily create a web page using that, and then use PayPal, PayPal.com, to charge money. And then this is where the fun part begins, because what you can do is, and you know what, just if you're brand new to this, what you can do for now is just create a separate page in that WordPress blog, and you can make a hidden page in Paper Template, and just have a single page that says, thanks for registering, here's the class, and here is the webinar registration link to use to sign up. And so in order to actually run your webinar, you have to use a service called GoToWebinar, and that's the first service I'm going to give to you. So far, we used Paper Template to host the sales letter, PayPal to collect payments, and then after they pay, then you can redirect them in the button to this thing that says, here's how to sign up. Here's how to register as an attendee for these upcoming webinars. So using GoToWebinar, and by the way, you can go to webinarcrusher.com. We'll give you a free GoToWebinar account as part of that training. But if you're really strapped for your budget, if you're really, pinching the pennies basically, then you can just go to GoToWebinar and sign up for their 1 month. I think it's like a $1, if not a free trial. So you can have a 1 month period where you can run as many webinars as you want until the $100 a month kicks in. And so by registering for this GoToWebinar service, you can then go into your backend and say, I want to create a webinar. It's going to be titled Podcast Crusher, all 4 modules, and then it's going to be set at this exact date and time in this time zone. And then that's all there is to it. And then there's like a second or third page where you have to uncheck a bunch of boxes, but you basically click a button and now you've scheduled a webinar. What does that mean? It means you can hand out the special registration link where other people can click on that, register, and then it sends them reminder emails. Then when the time comes for the webinar to begin, you click on the start button to start the webinar, which shares your screen and where people can hear your voice. Then those people who registered all attend, and you record the session in case they couldn't attend. So let me explain a few of those things. So what we said there was that you register with a GoToWebinar, right? And then you schedule the webinar by putting in the date and the time and all that good, and the name basically. And then you take that webinar registration link that attendees sign up, and you put that on your thanks for buying page. So now you have a 2-page website. One says here's what to buy, they buy. The second one says now click on this to register. And what's really cool is in Webinar Crusher we show you how to set up just one webinar event, and then you can okay, so for Podcast Crusher we presented all 4 sessions on the same day. Okay, so we planned a 2-hour time slot for each module went about 90 minutes or so, and then we had a 30-minute break in between. So it was really cool, a really great way to knock out a class in a day, and lots of people followed through, and some people, had to come back and watch a few of the modules later, but several people actually got their podcasts created and online that same day along with us. So if you're like me and you want to just get it over with, you can create it in a day. But if you're brand new, an easier way would be to present just one module per week. Okay, and this works out great with your Webinar Crusher 30-day time period, because let's say that your class starts a week from now. Well, then you have 3 weeks to deliver all 4 modules, right? Because the first module is on day 1, then day 7, then day 14, then day 21. So you have a week, and 3 more weeks, that's about a month away until your course is done. But you get paid, remember, up front before the course starts. So my point is that when you set up a webinar, you can create it as what's called a recurring webinar, where the one link registers the same attendees. And that means that people can click on the one link, fill in their email address, and then now if your webinar sessions are spaced 1 week apart, which I recommend you do starting off, now they're registered for all 4. And so what you do is you just call your one webinar session Podcast Crusher, all modules, and then you personally decide on what day of the week, like a Tuesday, and what time, like 4 p.m. Eastern, do you want to present each and every module. And I would highly, highly, highly recommend that every week you present at the same day of the week and the same time of day. That way people get used to showing up. So you use GoToWebinar to present, and then I mentioned offhandedly this tool called Camtasia Recorder, which once again it costs $300, but they too have a $1, if not a free, 30-day trial period. I'm pretty sure that I think it's GoToWebinar is $1. Camtasia is free. If you don't think I'm right, email Robert at robertplank.com. But I think that's how it is. So with Camtasia, this is a screen recording software, and that means that when you show your PowerPoint, you show your web pages, you show a piece of software on a webinar, and people see your exact screen. Well, then you also record this in Camtasia. You record your entire exact full screen, and now you've presented it live, but you also have a recording to then use later on. So what you do is, and then what I would do, if you're keeping it simple, is at the end of every, so what you do, okay, basically every week you have this webinar at the same date and time. You start it, you present for about an hour, you record it, and then at the end of your 90-minute or so presentation, you have this challenge. And you know what, with these modules, I plan on going an hour. It usually ends up being about 90 minutes because people ask questions. And at the end, I say, okay, well now here is the challenge that you need to go to. And so to keep it simple for you right now, I would just add the challenge on that exact download page, so that at the end of your module, you can go and say, okay, I'm going to save on video, I'm going to put it on this page, I'm going to list the 4 questions that I'm going to ask you, basically the assignment. So you make this assignment and you ask 4 questions that people answer right away. They don't have to do the assignment right away, but like we said earlier in the Podcast Crusher example, we show people how to create their very first podcast episode, so we want them to commit to actually doing it, right? That's the first step to them doing it, of first saying that, okay, I'll do it. And we ask, what's the name of your show? What, and as a whole, the title of your first episode. What are your 3 talking points? And what time and date will your podcast be submitted to iTunes? So with these challenges, there are 4 questions, but usually the final one, the 4th one, is some kind of a proof element. The first and second are usually some kind of some kind of like a gimme, right? It's just really simple, like the name of your show, title of your episode. And the third one, many times will be like what time and date will it be done by. So near the end, we'll ask what time and date and where will this be, like what will be the URL, but sometimes that's not always possible. But we'll just ask for really, really, really simple questions. They respond to those questions, then they go out and do the task, they come back, and then they say, I am done. And so by doing this, by having your webinar course, well, people are going to be more apt to taking action because this is a live course. You're going to be more excited because they're asking questions. And as long as you don't really let them disrupt your teaching, because if it gets too out of hand, then just stop looking at the question and just teach what you were going to teach. But you have these 4 modules. You, in each of the modules, explain, what little stepping stone you want them to get to, and explain the why of it, the what of it, the how-to of it, which is most of it, and the what if, which is the challenge, and present it with GoToWebinar, use Paper Template to sell it and to post the recordings, record it in Camtasia, and even use PowerPoint to help structure your teaching, right? And so you go to PowerPoint, show some bullet points, show some screenshots, then switch over back to what it is you're going to teach. But it doesn't really even matter if the PowerPoint slides are, look that great. But in Webinar Crusher, we actually give you 100 different PowerPoint slides to make your webinars look super awesome. So then at this point, you have all these recordings, and if you're a little more proficient in WordPress, there is a plugin called Wishlist Member. And this is a membership site software, but by membership, I mean a site where someone can be a member, not necessarily a site where you charge month after month after month. So someone pays $500, or what do we say, $300 to learn WordPress? And so what you can do is charge $300 for this class, for this live class with 4 modules, with challenges, maybe with a quick start video or so. $300 sounds great. So it pays $300. They get the quick start video immediately. They show up for these different webinar sessions. They can ask questions. There's a challenge at the end. It's recorded. And then what you can do is use this tool, this plugin called Wishlist Member, and protect your membership site. And set up this blog where you create what are called different posts and make one post for the recording for Module 1 post for the challenge for Module 1, where people can click on the comment button and actually respond to you directly on the site with how they're doing with that assignment. Then a post for Module 2, a post for the challenge for Module 2, and a post for Module 3 recording, a post for the challenge number 3, a post for Module 4 recording, a post for challenge number 4, and now you have a complete membership site here. And then what's really cool is that later on, when you actually have Wishlist Member fully set up, well, you can do 2 things. One is install a plugin called Custom Post Order, which will allow you to actually flip the order of your blog posts, and then they will now be displayed newest to oldest, I guess, or earliest to latest, however you want to say it. But I mean, you make posts and they start at the top, they go to the bottom. So when someone joins the site, they see Module 1 at the top, and they scroll down and down and down, and then the further they scroll down, the more stuff they get. And then in Wishlist Member, you can switch out that payment button from before. Remember, it went to that one web page that said, register for these webinars. Well, the webinars are now over. So now what this button does is they click the button, they pay you money, then they go to a form that says create an account. Create a username, a password, and then now they're sent to that list of videos where they can log in over and over again, leave comments, and they'll always be able to get back to it. And then later on in the future, you can do some cool stuff, like I like to get our webinar classes transcribed. And there's a system for that at makeaproduct.com. And so I can take these videos that we had created and get someone to type in the exact words we used when we spoke them out, and then I'll get them back in a text document. I'll resave them as a Word document, and then I'll take little still snapshots of the video and then save it as a PDF. So now someone can join that site and see the videos, the transcripts, which we call like a report, so it's more like a reference. There's the challenges in there. There's whatever bonuses, and then I get even crazier and mix them up the navigation. And by that, I mean I can create a page and I can create a table on that page using a plugin called WP Table Reloaded and link to the different posts on the blog. And so then it becomes more of like a home study course where I can create these multi-column tables where people can see these different modules that they can just jump to one after another. You can see a perfect example of that by joining Podcast Crusher and seeing what the inside of that members area is all about. But that's how to create a webinar class to create instant products and make recurring money online using GoToWebinar, Camtasia, and PowerPoint. And if you got nothing else out of today, the thing that really hit me after doing webinars for so long was that the more webinars you run, the better you get at them and the less scared you get at them. Because, I mean, at first you feel like it's public speaking, but the more you do it, the less it feels like it. And then before you know it, you can create your 4-week course. If it has a bigger scope, it might be an 8-week course. You can create a coaching program so that someone can pay you month after month. And you use webinars to meet with them one-on-one personally, record the session, figure out what tasks they'll do at the end of that session, put them in a membership site just for them. We have sites like Webinar Crusher and Double Agent Marketing where we meet with our members of the site once a month and they pay month after month, and we just meet there, answer all their questions, record it. It's a lot of fun for everyone involved. So webinars are the best way to create products. Don't let them scare you. Don't let these ideas of thinking that you have to have it scripted or it has to be 4 hours long or you have to, if it's a membership site, it has to be every single month. None of that is true. The best way to get started is to create a high-ticket 4-week course, getting people where they need to go, get a lot of people on your pitch webinar or call on some favors, get people to join this 4-week course, present it either in the same day or week after week, record it, get it transcribed, put it into a members area, and now you have a complete course that you can sell over and over again, sell the physical version, cut it up into payments, make it into, where like a 4-pay or a 5-pay type of class where they can come back later, and it's no longer live, but the information is still good. They can still post the challenges, they can still interact and post questions as comments in the post where you put that recording. It's still a workable, a usable, a valuable class, even though it is no longer live. And you can keep doing them over and over again. You can update the course. You can make courses on new subjects as you feel like it. So thanks for tuning in. I want to give some quick shout outs to people who have chosen to like the Robert Plank Show by going to robertplankshow.com. That's robertplankshow.com. Click the like button and I'll mention your name on air as well. So I want to say hi to Richard Sayer, Mandy White, Matthew Shelton, Michael McMorris, Jack Visser, Huib Salomons, Jackie Carroll, Senna, Andy Kobus, David McTeer, Mary Clements, Roberto Aguilar, Anthony Santiago. So go to robertplankshow.com, click the like button, and I promise to butcher your name on air. And if you too want to run your own webinar class to create instant products and make recurring money online using GoToWebinar, Camtasia, and PowerPoint, head on over right now to webinarcrusher.com, and I'll talk to you next time.